Good evening. We begin tonight keeping them honest with a simple question. What's worse than a cover-up? The answer came today from the podium of the White House briefing room when the press secretary gave a master class in attempted gaslighting. Now, in case you haven't seen the movie or read much about this particular kind of psychological manipulation, gaslighting is when someone tries to make you question your own reality and sanity. Its main weapons include lying, contradiction, and denial. At issue today, the now former Staff Secretary Rob Porter, who resigned last week after news broke that two ex-wives had accused him of physical and verbal abuse. The White House still hasn't been able to put together a consistent explanation of who knew about the allegations and when they knew. CNN has reported that White House counsel Don McGahn knew a year ago that this may come up in the FBI background check and learned more details over the past year. Last week, the world saw this picture, one of Porter's former wives with a black eye. Now, even after this picture came out, Porter denied the allegations. Now, today, the White House would have you believe that above all else, the president supports victims. The same president who has never supported victims or even mentioned them, the same president who spoke glowingly about Rob Porter just 3 days ago without saying one word about domestic violence. Here's what Sarah Sanders said today.
President, along with the entire administration, take domestic violence very seriously and believe all allegations need to be thoroughly investigated. And above all, the president supports the victims of domestic violence and believes everyone should be treated fairly and with due process.
The president takes domestic violence very seriously. That's what she just said. Now, just as a refresher, here's all the president has said about this case and its alleged victims. This was on Friday.
It's a obviously tough time for him. He did a very good job when he was in the White House. And we hope he has a wonderful career, and hopefully he will have a great career ahead of him. But it was very sad when we heard about it, and certainly he's also very sad. Now, he also, as you probably know, he says he's innocent. And I think you have to remember that. He said very strongly yesterday that he's innocent. So you'll have to talk to him about that, but we absolutely wish him well.
The president takes domestic violence very seriously. Here's what he tweeted over the weekend. People's lives are being shattered and destroyed by a mere allegation. Some are true and some are false. Some are old and some are new. There is no recovery for someone falsely accused. Life and career are gone. Is there no such thing any longer as due process? Remember, the White House says the president takes domestic violence very seriously. And we're supposed to believe that because Sarah Sanders said so today. She said it once, and then she said it again and again and again. She repeated the same phrase 4 times in the briefing, nearly word for word.
The president and the entire administration take domestic violence very seriously and believe all allegations need to be investigated thoroughly. And above all, the president supports the victims of domestic violence, but the president also supports due process.
So if that's true, why didn't the president say that? Why didn't he tweet that? Why has he time and time again, this time included, supported the accused, not the accuser? Today, Sanders was asked point blank why we haven't heard the president say exactly what she said, that he takes domestic violence seriously.
I spoke with the president. Those are actually directly his words that he gave me earlier today.
Why hasn't he said that? He had the opportunity.
It's my job to speak on behalf of the president. I spoke to him and he relayed that message directly to me, and I'm relaying it directly to you. I'm not sure how I can be any more clear. I think the president has espoused his views on this, and I certainly have echoed and told them for everyone.
He wishes Porter well, and that he believes that people should have due process, but he hasn't addressed the victims of domestic violence at all.
That's actually not true, if you were paying attention to what I just read to you.
Well, keeping them honest, we were paying attention. You just heard it. The president has expressed support for Rob Porter, nothing about the women. The same way he expressed support for Roy Moore and Bill O'Reilly and Mike Tyson, the same way he called all the women who accused him of sexual misconduct liars, praising the alleged predators. Nothing about the women except scorn for his accusers. Now, we all hear what he says and doesn't say, and no amount of repetition from the podium suggesting that we didn't hear what we thought we heard can change that. At the same time, it's insisting the president supports victims above all else. The White House is still bobbing and weaving on the timeline. Sarah Sanders says the White House learned of, quote, the extent of the situation last Tuesday. That's their new phrasing. Last Tuesday evening, and within 24 hours, Porter's resignation had been accepted and announced. She was pressed about reports that some in the White House knew about this for much longer, including the White House counsel.
We've reported, and others have too, that Don McGahn, over a period of months, was told repeatedly by the ex-girlfriend, by the FBI, by others in the White House about these accusations, and didn't do anything. Can you explain why no action was taken by Don McGahn, the chief White House lawyer?
Those allegations that have been reported are not accurate.
So she quickly batted that away in a very general statement, said those reports are not accurate. But moments later, listen to what she said when she was asked to clarify.
Are you saying that the White House counsel never learned until last Tuesday that there was any allegation of any sort that was ever leveled against Rob Porter?
Again, I'm not going to go into the specific details of how the process works, but I can say that we learned of the extent of the situation.
Who's we? Because I want to get to Don
The White House,
specifically.
the White House generally. Again, I can't get into the specifics. I can tell you that the process for the background was ongoing, and the White House had not received any specific papers regarding the completion of that background check.
Okay, so she switches when asked about the White House counsel to just speak generally about people in the White House, saying we. And then she claims that the background check was still ongoing, that she didn't receive any papers about the end of it. Now, the only part of the story that the White House was crystal clear on today is that the president takes domestic violence seriously and, above all else, supports victims. And based on what he has said and tweeted, to borrow Sarah Sanders' much-used phrase, that's not actually true. CNN Chief White House Correspondent Jim Acosta was at the briefing today. He joins us now. Jim, it seems like we still don't have a timeline from the White House as to who knew what and when.
No, Anderson, you could say that the White House is extending the timeline of the scandal because they're not giving straight answers at these briefings, and we saw that again today. Essentially, you heard Sarah Sanders say that, well, they weren't aware of the extent of what Rob Porter was accused of until last Tuesday night. And, of course, we know for a fact, and never mind the fact that the deputy spokesman, Raj Shah, said that they were fully aware in that general area as well. But, Anderson, we've known for months, or they've known, we know that they knew for months that this was lurking in Rob Porter's background, that he was having background check problems in the security clearance process. We know that. And until the White House acknowledges that, they're going to have trouble answering this question. The other thing that is lengthening this process for the White House is just the way that the president has been going back and forth in all of this. And I talked to a couple of Republican sources today, one who used to work for the campaign, who simply said, and this just gives you a sense as to how people are feeling about this in the Republican Party, a former campaign official who said the White House is just not standing by the victims. A Republican source up on Capitol Hill asking the question, why is the White House hedging on domestic abuse? And so this is doing lasting damage, obviously, across the country as the public is watching this, but inside their own party as well.
Jim, you pressed Sanders on the president's tweet over the weekend. What'd she have to say about it?
That's right, and you could see this unfold during the briefing where the press secretary came out. She read that statement from the president that she said was dictated to her by the president. She said they didn't want to take any more questions on the matter, and then, of course, every question was about this. And I just wanted to get to the bottom of why is it, and you laid this out earlier, Anderson, why is it the president was seemingly praising Rob Porter last Friday and sort of standing up for him in that tweet over the weekend when he was asking the question about allegations and how they can damage people, throughout their careers. And so I pressed Sarah Sanders on that. Here's what she had to say. Is there tone deafness there? Is there just being on the wrong side of things?
I don't think the president being on supporting due process for any allegation is not tone deaf. I think it is allowing things to be investigated and a mere allegation not be the determining factor. He's not taking a side necessarily one way or the other on any specific issue here. He's talking about mere allegations shouldn't be the determining factor for any individual, that there should be due process. I think anybody here, if they were accused of something, hold on, Jim, I'm not finished. Hold on, Jim, hold on. What I'm saying is I think anybody here, if they were accused of something, would want the opportunity to go through due process.
And the other area in all of this that they weren't giving us a straight story on would be the security clearances. As we were reporting late last week, the White House has dozens of staffers here who don't have a full security clearance. They're working off interim security clearances, like the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. And when they were pressed on that today, when Sarah was pressed on that today, she essentially said, well, that's up to the FBI. I'll punch you to the FBI and the intelligence community. Anderson, as you know, we've been pointing this out. The background check process, it is undertaken by the FBI. They bring that information to the White House. It's incumbent upon the White House to act on it. And of course, Sanders left that out of the briefing as well. So it's one day after another, dodging the question, giving incomplete answers, not giving the straight story, and they're prolonging the timeline of the scandal, not us,
Yeah.
Anderson.
Jim Acosta, I appreciate the reporting.